No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. And today I'm in here with William of Base Smokes. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, bro. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to have this conversation. You've been doing some big stuff in the cannabis space. So tell me how you got into it in the first place, like where you're from and what led up to you entering the industry.
I'm from North Carolina, and I mean, I've smoked all my life throughout high school. And so I got into college. I went to ASU for a year, and I saw really just a bunch of kids making a lot of money in e-commerce. And so I knew I wanted to do something with e-commerce instead of like going through college. And so I ended up dropping out to do different drop shipping things. And eventually I realized I wanted to like start a brand around something that I was more passionate about and not just selling random and other people's products.
Because I've seen people talk about drop shipping a ton online, and a lot of times it just seems like you're sort of finding a way to market like random garbage from China.
Yeah. Or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be garbage. It could be a good product, but it's like you're just doing only the marketing piece of a business and letting somebody else fulfill the product and have the business or whatever.
Did you manage to do well while you were doing drop shipping?
I just made enough money to like pay rent and like taste money outside of working a job that is like, okay, I can make something work. Like I see that it's possible to make money.
Right.
So now I just need to find a better product and like build something. And I mean, I saw the CBD bill pass at the end of 2018, and that's when this was happening for me. And I realized like, okay, CBD is something I used a lot when I was in high school because I had a bunch of concussions from sports. And that was like, you know, makes your headache go away completely. So I was like, okay, I'll be able to start a business with CBD, and hopefully eventually it turns into weed one day.
Right. So you just kind of saw that vision early on?
Yeah. I mean, I figured like it would evolve over time. I didn't realize that it would evolve how it did because it kind of went from CBD to Delta-8. And then eventually what we're doing now, like this THCA flower thing, like that's equivalent to dispensary products. So it's regular cannabis that you'd get in a dispensary, but we're running an e-commerce shop and we sell to smoke shops all over the country as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you start off doing the CBD thing because that's fully legal. So you didn't have any kind of problems legally or anything when you were doing all that?
It's a federally legal, like the bill that was passed to make CBD legal was a federal law. So now hemp cannabis that's, you know, under a certain regulation of the hemp bill is federally legal.
So then how do you get to doing Delta-8? Was that always legal?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing about it is it's not that anything changed that made Delta-8 legal or something changed that made the THCA legal. It's that the law was what it was when it was passed in 2018, but people just, you know, the longer it went along, people realized like, wait a second, the way this is written, it's actually making Delta-8 legal and it's actually making regular legal.
Right.
And, you know, of course that feels like a real ballsy step to go from like, all right, CBD, like, of course this is legal, but like technically regular is legal, but, you know, obviously marijuana is federally illegal, but regular that's called hemp is legal. It's kind of this weird thing of like, you know, technically it says it is, but even, you know, as I was kind of, I mean, that was probably 4 years deep into the hemp industry when really like the first people were starting to do it. I saw a couple people do it, and my initial reaction was, you're going to jail. Like you're clearly going to get, you know, caught by the DEA doing this or whatever. And eventually I saw a good friend of mine doing the THCA stuff as well, that like he was like very like strict with everything, laws to the T, had lots of lawyers kind of giving advice before taking any next step. And I saw him doing it and I was like, shit, okay, like, you know, I need to really look into this. I talked to a couple different lawyers. They said, yeah, like regular is technically legal. It's called THCA flower. And like, here's what you should be worried about or not worried about. And like, here's all the things to consider. But generally speaking, yeah, it's federally legal. Go for it.
Right. Because, well, how risk adverse would you describe yourself as? Because obviously a lot of people in your position are basically just shipping pounds around the country and really just taking risks with it and just kind of assuming that there's just not enough scrutiny for them to get into trouble. We all know tons of people who've made millions of dollars basically just kind of hoping to skate around the law.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like risk adverse, like I feel like I went through being a reckless kid and going into college and kind of my decision and moving into life like how I was, like that was kind of me deciding like, okay, I don't want to do anything illegal. I don't want to ever be in a situation where I could find myself with criminal liability for absolutely anything. And so going into this space, like I really kind of kept the same thing. Like anything that I do, like I would talk to a bunch of different lawyers and make sure that, you know, under no uncertain terms, is there ever any criminal liability? And so I feel like really confident with that everything that we're doing is like absolutely totally above board. So, in that sense, I'm risk adverse in the sense that I don't want to do anything criminal in any extent, because the long-term vision that I see for this needs to be kind of with a foundation of complete and utter, like, above board, without anything that could be misinterpreted or otherwise. So
yeah, because when I was younger, I was down to take all kinds of risks to make some money. But as you get older and you look at it, and then you're like,
it's like, I want to build something.
Yeah, and it's like, if I can make $10 million, but I have a 10% chance of getting 10 years in jail, then what the f is $10 million when the downside of it is this like catastrophic situation that would basically ruin your entire life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The risk of this really is like, it's uncertain what the future of it looks like. I mean, generally speaking, the trend seems to be that, federally we're moving in like just a good direction for cannabis as a whole. And like, obviously this is a great step, but it wasn't necessarily the intended step. Like, weed has technically been federally legal since the 2018 Farm Bill, but it wasn't necessarily the intention. So now it's kind of like, on a state by state basis, what are they doing about it? Some states that already had, like, California has medical and recreational already. So they kind of banned hemp from being sold in smoke shops, but like they can still sell it wholesale. And there's kind of like this weird space of it. But, generally I have an optimistic, hope for what's next in this. And, weed's already federally legal. So we're working a lot like with lobbying groups to kind of keep it that way.
Because it's a weird situation, because obviously, like, as something becomes legal, you want to kind of be the front runner, so that as it becomes more legal and this becomes more settled, then you can kind of be already established. That's the ideal situation. But like, at the same time, by being more established, you're basically, I'm thinking of things like Galaxy Gas, where like obviously I'm not comparing what you're doing, but like that shit, like they pulled it off the market because they were the front runner in that market. And that was the thing that I'm pretty sure they were terrified that they were going to get the attention of the feds. Whereas there's probably like a million other nitrous brands that are doing similar stuff marketing that aren't
just
worried.
Like with Juul, Juul was like the front runner in like that higher potency nicotine vape. And now there's, they had a bunch
they're the ones who get the scrutiny, not everybody.
And then there's a million other vape brands with all different types of flavors that are actually appealing to kids that, they're not getting the same sort of like massive lawsuit.
There's a lot of danger in being the market leader.
Yeah, the first and the biggest for sure.
So, okay. In terms of like Delta-8 and THCA, for people who, live in California and are used to being able to go to the dispensary and get like very high quality, like, how would you compare those products in terms of how high they get you and how high quality the product is? Because I feel like for a lot of people, I've heard them dismiss Delta-8 or THCA, and I often get the idea that they don't necessarily know what they're talking about. They just kind of figured this out for themselves, that they think that it's low quality or whatever. So from your perspective, like, what's the comparison like?
So Delta-8 being the first popular thing to come out of hemp that's any type of THC kind of gave this whole space a bad rep, because Delta-8 is like, it's like it's a semi-synthetic basically form of THC, and it doesn't get you as high. It's like maybe half as strong. Okay. So because that was like the first, get you high product to come out of hemp, that's already a bad reputation of the hemp side of things. THCA flower is regular cannabis. It's the exact same thing. And just like, in a dispensary here, you could go and get like an outdoor eighth or something that's super low potency, or maybe it's really dry and gross. Like, you can buy that super cheap. Yeah. You also can get like the top shelf, most crazy eighth in the world, and it's super expensive. So in this side, it's the same way. Like, you can buy really shitty flower, or you can buy really amazing flower. But the thing to kind of consider of it is, because this is such a new thing, and it's getting more aged at this point, but it's still kind of in this new wave of like a lot of companies rushing into THCA. A lot of people are selling like cheaper, like greenhouse stuff, and they're calling it exotic because they're just not smokers themselves. So they don't really know what the market is actually expecting. And so that's kind of also damaging the appearance of what is hemp, what is THCA, is people selling shitty greenhouse stuff, calling it exotic. But definitely the market's going to mature over time more and more. And it's already getting that way a lot, where people are getting a lot better flower, even with like, shitty random smoke shop brands that's just like some distributor decides to spin up a package, put it out there. And like someone who already sells a bunch of nicotine vapes, or there's already selling like anything that would go into smoke shops, they can easily spin up a brand, push it to the same distributors that they're already working for. And now it's out there. So, the quality is increasing quickly, but generally speaking, you get what you pay for.
Right. Okay. Interesting.